Hey everyone, it's Krista over here, and we got our tank from Thursday, and we are going to trim this tank right after I make sure we're good. Oh yeah, we're totally good. Okay. We're gonna undo the cooling fixture on the mounts here, the tank pad, I guess frame pads on the tank. We spread these open, and that means a better fit on the frame. If I don't spread these apart a little bit, the tank is a little bit more narrow where the frame is on the pads. It's just 3/8 all thread, like you would see at, like restaurants hanging lights or things from the overhead. I also have a more primitive spare kit in there that is for the case where we do 2 tanks in a day. Hold the tank down. Actually, we're going to go over here a little bit so I'm closer to the vacuum. And let's move you. Does this work? Oh, there we go. That sort of works. Okay. Put on some hearing protection because it's loud and scary. I don't think this is actually loud enough to hurt ears or hearing, but I'm kind of a wuss and I don't like loud noises. We use a vacuum to collect as many chips as possible. So the cooling fixture around the fuel flange also works as a drill guide. It protects where the O-ring seals the flange to the plastic of the tank itself. And I think it's possible my phone is still playing audio, so we should... Is that the case? Yes, it certainly is. Okay. Shut that up. Okay. This is my test flange. And these don't need a lot of force to actually seal. I use Phillips head for testings, or Phillips head screws for testing. They are very quick to engage and disengage, much easier than trying to use a hex type of tool. Hex heads are great and pretty, but you know, they're kind of almost single use sometimes. And here I've gotten a few hundred uses out of these screws. The thing with Phillips, so, you know, like number 3 needs a number 3 drive on it, and number 2 needs a number 2 drive. It sounds kind of obvious, but when you do it that way, they last kind of forever. Now we're going to put the cover that seals on here. And then underneath, we use a plate and a fastener to hold this plastic tube together. If you don't hold that tube, what can happen is, I should say what will happen is as you add air to pressurize it for the testing, it pushes the top away from the bottom, or pushes both of them away from each other. So this screw is always a little bit tricky. There we go. The all thread through the middle makes this piece a little bit tough to get started sometimes. And you see I use a fleece blanket to protect the shiny top surface. And I have this spacer on here just so I don't have to run through a whole bunch of threads. This is my test pressure testing rig. We've got a 5 psi regulator that's turned low. We have a needle valve and a special type of fitting that's dedicated for this. So hopefully we see the green and don't put shop air on there, because this would literally explode. So as this goes, the tank will expand in all directions, which is normal, and it goes back after the pressure is relieved. So you see it bowing in. The water in our trash can is probably 50, 55 degrees. That's gonna suck a little. Pull up my sleeves. And we go for a swim. When you have even the slightest amount of pressure in the tank and you submerge it, it will absolutely blow bubbles and let you know. Let's see, is there a way to make this more fun for y'all? Although I loosened it, so now it's going to be grumpy. Well, that works. Okay. The blue type of shop towel is about the only thing we can dry tanks with that doesn't leave scratches. I think we're going to need to redo the mold release. And that's a little annoying. I kind of hate doing that because it takes away from production. Undo the pieces from the bottom. And then water does get through where that screw was, which is fine. That's expected in proper behavior. But what matters is that air did not get past this ring. it looks like I've done this a few times, I have. I'd sort of come up with my procedure. I do the same steps every time. And then I'm going to use these damp blue towels to wipe the interior and help get the chips out. Vacuuming doesn't really work inside because it creates a vortex with static electricity, and it just kind of throws the chips everywhere except for where you want them, which is out of the tank. So another thing you notice is that I don't really take tools above the tank. I always kind of go around. So by maintaining that kind of tool discipline, it minimizes the opportunities for dropping a tool onto the tank. Now on this side, there's not much cosmetic reason to fear. So if you drop a tool in here, that's fine. But if you do something where the O-ring goes, you're going to cause the tank to not be usable. Now, if a scratch or a ding is small enough, you can Dremel it out slowly and carefully, or use a file or sandpaper. The problem when reconditioning the surface is that you need to physically remove material while preventing the buildup of heat. Recall that polyethylene does not melt and reflow. So instead of melting, it simply starts burning. And when I say burn, it's not like it catches fire. It's just the surface starts getting crunchy looking. These are the 1/8 MTT threads. And actually they aren't NPT, or the thread I cut is not. It's M10 by 1.0, which is remarkably similar to the 1/8 NPT 28 pitch. No, thank you. Okay, we put this back, and then before the last step is we'll screw this in, but that's after we flame the tank. These sort of get melty when I throw flame around. The hole saw for the next step is a little clunky. It doesn't quite fill the interior of that space. So I have to go for it twice. And then another thing is that tube goes right behind it. So we have to make sure we don't hit the tube. I've come close to ruining the tank once or twice by going through and hitting that tube. So I brace the tool into my hip, and that kind of helps from following through and letting the tool fall. Also, I use the action of my hips to control downforce. So by not pushing with my arm, it helps me to prevent the tool from following through and damaging that little tube. So now we have to go after this crescent. Perfect. Here's that crescent. Let's see if we can get these chips. I'll use the smaller attachment that cuts down on the vortices or vortexes. That works. You kind of keep up on them. So this would be just a typical die grinder from the blue hardware store, except for then I made this attachment. It threads on and then locks into place. And it actually, there's an inner and an outer sleeve. The outer sleeve has a channel for the slide. And you notice the cut out here to miss the filler housing. And then it's height adjustable with these three screws. And it's set perfectly so that this is the right latch depth. I made these screws captive. I machined down the threads. You have to kind of get that just right, because what I need to do is have some threads and then it's wider. So it's a little tricky to do captive threads. I think I practiced a few times on another piece of metal before I committed to doing it to this tool. So early on when we were making these, I found out it was tricky when you would fill up the tank. It would try to like spit out at you. And then I noticed the original tank had these little holes right here. And so they're like telltale holes. When the level gets close to being full, it starts spraying out those little side holes. That's it for the physical modifications to the tank. I'll reposition the camera and then we're going to start doing the trimming of the flash, which is the aesthetics. And that's attention to detail and getting the finished product. I think I do need to go into the other room and get my stool. So that's through the portal. I'll be back in a minute. The stool is over by where I had the computer when I was molding Thursday. Okay, I'm back. Now we're gonna lower. I don't know, do I want you over my shoulder or? Well, we'll see how this works. I just use a standard hobby knife. It helps to have a kind of sharp blade. It just means less force. And it really helps to have good vision. So we're going to put our glasses on. Now let's move you up some. There, that might work. Okay. There's me face. I might go ahead and just get a new blade. I know it's been a minute. Like I totally can't remember the last time I changed it. So this is what works for me when it comes to using hobby knives and trimming plastic. It's going to be different. You're going to need to try everything that works for you. And so on this tip, it goes up and then has a bevel right before the point. That drop tip or that bevel tip really seems to help me do a better job when I'm trimming. Usually I'll practice on the bottom before I come back and do the top where it's the most obvious and kind of get a feel for how my jitters are doing. I mean, some days I'm just a little too jumpy, and I've even not trimmed the tank and put it off to the next day if I'm just worried. And so it's been a little while, so I'm a little out of practice, and that's why I went with the new blade. I'm already glad I did. So can we see? Let me see. Can I see you guys? move the computer around some. So I keep this hand holding the blade and its angle and how much I'm pushing. And then the other blade, or the other hand, I use to shove with my thumb to go forward. So if you do it all with one hand, it's pretty easy to just fly away, and then you lose control of your cut. And like I said, that's what works for me. That's what I do for me. So it sort of looked like I was going after my hand, but I really wasn't. I mean, the left hand was ahead of the blade, but because the left hand was pulling or driving, I didn't worry about running into myself. Now this is me trying to do it all one hand. And eventually you get good enough at it, maybe you can go without having to push. I just kind of like the control. The other thing I like to do, and this is a me thing, I find it's easier, like this piece is higher than that piece. So I like to have the blade coming in from the higher side. Somehow that works better for me. Oh no, I got a little deep there, but that's fine. It's underneath. Kind of even it up some. So when trimming, you just kind of need to not over trim. Over trim is when you start whittling away like a crazy person. So the whole goal is to make it aesthetically pleasing and not sharp to the touch. And the first time I saw these tanks being trimmed, it was in Long Beach, California. That plant isn't there anymore. It was Jacobson Plastics, and on the factory floor, a whole bunch of Mexican ladies. And I was just shocked when she would just do the top and just go whoosh with their hand, and it was just one quick instant swoop. Mad respect for those ladies. I guess it was really unusual for people who have parts made to show up where they're being made. So it was quite the curiosity when I would come visit, and I always smiled and thanked them for their work. I mean, I didn't want to pay a courier to haul our tanks because that would be, I mean, even today, it's still, that would cost more than fuel. So I drive from San Diego in a van and fill up the van and drive home. When we moved to Georgia, we couldn't find anyone to make our tanks. They're not that hard to quote unquote make, but the deal is they take so long that it interferes with other production. So then steps get skipped, attention to detail slips, and next thing you know, you're not getting any good tanks. And then they're not making as much money because we interfere with the rest of their production. So we went and got our own molding machine. And I can do these in a very ideal way and focus on quality and precision and not worry about speed of production. So any place where different pieces of metal fit together, there's gonna be some flash. It even happens where metal is welded over time. Really subtle cracks will happen due to the expansion and contraction from the heat cycles, and you can't help that. This corner's a little sharp. So technically, I'm violating my rule because it's higher on the far side. All right, let's trim around this opening. So you have to be really careful not to drag the knife across where the O-ring goes. That is one of the more difficult whammos to fix. Something about the blade digs super deep and the trench is so narrow that it's harder for the O-ring to fill it. Like you'd be amazed what an O-ring will seal on, but it absolutely will not seal where one of these knife tips drags around. It was pretty good to get that in one go. You can't really see this part here, so it's just a matter of cleaning it up and making it look better. Oh, it's great to get that in one go. It looks so much better when there's not 20 facets along here. Like facets like on a diamond, a faceted edge. the rider can't really even see this part because there's a buckle and a latch, and then the ignition switch is right here. So even this spot's pretty, like, I clean it up just so that it has a professional appearance, but like no one's going to see in there. There's a good bit of overlap. They didn't do a good job making the two mold pieces fit here, but it's not really critical. Yeah, we'll just do a little bit kind of straight down, and then that'll probably be it for this. And so the goal is just to kind of make it look decent. We don't want anything obviously wonky or weird. This corner is one of the most difficult. Here I have the mold matched really well, and then in this complex curve, every time I kind of touch up the mold faces, that spot gets a little better, but there's still a pretty thick difference back there. So that's like 1/4 inch right there. I mean, it's a lot of plastic to cut through. Come on now. I don't want to do too many tries. That's almost perfect. This little bit sticking out. A bugger. Oh. Okay, we're going to go away from that for a minute. I think we're good. Probably totally in the way. I should maybe do this. There we go. So for the most part, there is no such thing as perfection. Honestly, it's just try to make it the best you can. bit of an edge. You can't see anything. So it's kind of tricky being a bit of a perfectionist working with rotational molding. It really is an imprecise technology. I mean, this is the same way that those baby seats, those booster seats at restaurants that they plop down, like this is the same process as making those. So people see the kind of quality I pull off and like other molders and they go, wow, that's pretty incredible. And then they're like, you need to go away so we don't have to like make tanks for you. So let's see, can you see this little bit of ghosting here? Oh yeah, there you go. So there's some ghosting, and this is the telltale of when we need to do mold release. And this comes right out when we flame it. So you just kind of like watch this area and you'll see it erase. And so the the texture on the mold like itself is the same here as here. You can't tell a difference in these spots. One last seam. I might go after this a little more. I don't know. I think I kind of want to. I don't know. It's such a hard call on that because, like I said, you don't want to whittle it away to nothing. Ideally, you do one good go at a place and then that's it. This part's under the seat, but I just don't like to have sharp corners in general. You know, you handle it. You don't want you don't want things poking at you. I'll try to come in gently behind here. Just doesn't really. All right, we took a kind of a large lump out of it. That's good. Think I need to quit. just double check I'm not missing anything obvious. Okay. I even try to not let the tank rest on chips. It doesn't exactly grind into them, but it doesn't help. There's always more. There's always more. Well, that's gone. We're not going to make that touch the tank again. Hit the floor. I think there's something about the rag being damp that helps it get rid of some of the static electricity. All right, we're doing pretty good. And we're going to drive this away a little bit. And then we're going to get ready to do the flame. So we'll put you back in the sky. We'll fix your angle. All right, that works. That's the flame cart. It has our tiger torch. There are lots of chips on the floor, and I like to sweep them up kind of quickly. One of the cats has a little bit of a fetish chewing on these. And although we haven't necessarily seen it in deep in their mouths or swallowed, it's just that's not something that's best practice for your kitty cats. Put those over there, and then in a few minutes I'll totally sweep them up. You can actually see some of that right there. And there you have it. That's flaming the tank. And the torch kind of slowly burns off that little bit of gas that's still hanging out past the valve. You know, there's a little bit right here. Let me see if I can get that out. Oh, perfect. So now that was using just some of the compressed gas that was in the hose. That's that. Thank you for watching. That was MTT tank number 124. We're going to let it cool off during lunch and then wrap it up, protect it, and ship it today. Thanks. Bye.